seconds, it emits a 2.5 megahertz, which is 2.5 million cycle.
Pam, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm an idiot. I actually didn't have the red lever up, which is the broadcast. I am so sorry. It's a good thing we're not actually live. I am so sorry. Okay, we'll just call this take 2. Make sure these. All right. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Here we go again. Okay. All right, we're back. I am Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News on this Friday edition. We have a horrible situation up north in Clark County. Thank goodness Pamela Jafke is on the case. They've erected a cell phone tower, and for many of you that don't know, these towers are damaging. They put out EMF waves that affect the minds, affect the bodies, affect nature in general. The whole problem could be solved with a simple $35 part, but Pam has attempted to contact city and county officials, contact the press. Nobody seems to be taking up the cause. Pamela, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. And I do want to get the word out because most people are not aware of the dangers of these cell towers. They see them go up, and they don't know the problem. And I do want to say that my city of Owen has been working with me, and we did pass a very comprehensive cell tower ordinance. So I do applaud the city, but they're not getting any cooperation from the cell tower owners within the city.
So you do have the support of the city council at this moment?
Yes, I do.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I've been very, very grateful. They've worked with me. I worked with the lawyer to draft the ordinance, and they have been very helpful. It's the cell tower people who are in total disrespect of any of the codes, ordinances out there, and totally disrespectful of the people that they're, and animals that they're harming. And this dovetails into the whole entire electrical pollution problem, where the whole electrical grid is just not able to support the electricity that's out there right now. And so electricity in general is, we're being harmed from it. But I'll talk to that in a minute.
Please.
The problem with cell towers, one of the problems, there's two problems. One of them is that the strobe light on top, that flashing light every 1.5 seconds, it creates a 2.5 million hertz cycle, and the normal electrical cycle is 60, so 2.5 million is a long way from 60.
Wow,
and
that is a lot. That's a huge
That's
difference.
a long way from 60. And what happens is that our electrical wiring is so bad that every 1.5 seconds, 10,000 volts goes up to the strobe light, and then every time it flashes, this transient or spike in the 60 cycle wave, this 2.5 million spike, comes down on the electrical wiring. Well, the wiring normally can't handle it for reasons I'll explain later, and so it goes into the ground. It goes, on the general wiring instead of being neutralized. It's actually strong enough when it's on the wiring in your house, according to an electrical engineer I've been in contact with, to penetrate the walls. And so if it can penetrate, the plaster in the walls, what is it doing, after it penetrates, the walls? What is it doing to the human body?
Wow.
I have a cat that is very sensitive to the electrical pollution because I did have bad wiring in my house, and she was exposed to it for a long time. I've since rewired my entire house. And when that cell tower went up, me as a veterinarian, I pulled out all the stops, and only because I'm a veterinarian, I think my cat is still alive today. And I noticed problems. You have problems sleeping, fatigue, even ringing in the ears, muscle pain. It's a whole gamut of. The bottom line is, what we call an RF choke, which is RF for radio frequency choke. It's a simple $35 part. It's a coil of wires you put around the wiring that's going up to the strobe light and, think of an acid neutralizing a base. I mean, it neutralizes that transient. It's not a big deal to fix it.
A $35 part.
A $35 part.
Who's holding up that part being put up there? I mean, that's the question. You can't get the owners to stick it on there?
Right. I mean, the railroad put the tower up. And they, contracted, obviously, a company there in the railroad business, not the cell tower business. So they contracted somebody to put the tower up. And, I've called the railroad, and they really do need to get somebody to teach them public relations.
Which railroad is this?
Canadian National.
Canadian National. Huh.
So I'm also dealing with the foreign company. So, that's just wonderful.
On American soil, of course.
Yes.
Goodness.
And,
yeah.
Oh, boy. And they have been totally disrespectful. I've never been treated more rudely. When I got an electrical engineer on who was certified by the Wisconsin Supreme Court as an expert witness, so they couldn't buffalo him. Of course, since I'm just a veterinarian and not an electrical engineer, I'm different than a box of rocks. And then they kind of started singing a new tone and said that, we'll talk. We need to be good neighbors. Yeah, we'll get it on. It's like I was.
Okay, one more time, because I really want to slam these guys. The name of it's Canadian Pacific.
Canadian National, CN.
CN. Oh, we've seen them on their little rail cars all the time, the CN logo.
Canadian National.
Okay.
So, it never got put up. I talked to somebody who referred me to somebody else in the food chain, and after talking with him a couple times, and, we don't know anything about cell towers, and I said, let me give you the name of somebody who does. And then he, after about the third or fourth conversation, and I did actually document the date and the time of every one of these conversations, and when I talked to them and what they told me, I didn't record it, but I wrote it down. He admitted that, gee, if we do it for you, we have to do it for everybody.
And how many?
And I thought, you paid Elgin, Illinois, $11 million in some settlement. So if you got $11 million to throw around to give out to Elgin, Illinois, I think you can afford a $35 park times 300 towers.
300 towers times 35. So we're talking about 900 and about 1,050, something like that. It would cost them $1,000 around to fix this.
Yeah, and they threw out Elgin, Illinois, $11 million, but they can't put up a $35 cell tower. RF choke.
You would think it'd be cheaper from a PR standpoint for them to just do this, the $1,000, and then avoid the problem.
You would think, because the cell tower ordinance that the city of Owen passed says if you can't prove that you're in compliance, and believe me,
they're not in compliance. Yeah,
they're not in compliance because the Public Service Commission 113.701 to .705 states it regulates cell towers, and the public. And in there it says it shall not deviate from a 60 cycle hertz, from a 60 cycle sine wave. Electricity from the tower shall not deviate from a 60 cycle sine wave. Well, guess what? 2.5 million is a long way from 60. So the city of Owen, they couldn't force towers to say, okay, now that you're up, you have to put this RF choke on. They went through the back door, and I give him, the lawyer, a lot of credit. He says on July 1st, every year you have to submit paperwork to prove that you're in compliance with IEEE Standards 519 and Public Service Code Commission 113.701 to .705. You have to prove that you're in compliance, or else it's a $1,000 a day fine.
And that's a county ordinance?
City of Owen.
City ordinance. Yeah, so I wonder.
And it's like the problem. There was a Telecommunications Act passed in 1996 that basically, written by the telecommunications industry, that pretty much gave them unlimited powers. We had to make sure when we wrote that ordinance that the word health was not used in that ordinance, because it is illegal to sue a cell tower owner if you suffer ill effects from the cell tower on your health. That's the telecommunications wrote that in there, that it is illegal to sue them.
How did
over
that
health
happen?
concerns.
I mean, they built
Because
that in.
they bought off everybody on Capitol Hill. How does everything happen? So,
On the state level, you're saying?
no, this is on a federal level. This is a federal
I see.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
Of course,
So
gotcha.
they think that they are immune to any regulation. But the Telecommunications Act, thank goodness, did leave the placement and the function up to local control. So there is some zoning ordinance. But if I win, and to me it's not really winning, it's just following the law.
Right.
If I get them to cooperate, then I've set a precedence. And that's the last thing they want is a precedence set.
Oh, Pam, you got to keep on with this because we need that precedence set.
That is the last thing they want. And there's another cell tower in town right by the school, and it's like, oh, great, fry all the kids and teachers' brains. I mean, can you get a worse place for a cell tower than a school?
Can you help me envision this thing? How tall is this tower? Approximately.
It's I'll tell you, a standard silo is 60, 70 feet, so it's got to be
4 or 5 stories.
Let's see, 250 feet tall, maybe.
And then how far does this electromagnetic frequency broadcast out to affect the health of people and animals around you?
Cows, since I'm a dairy veterinarian, cows are horribly affected by bad electricity. And there was a cell tower run up, and they switched from a rotating beacon, which was fine. I mean, just a simple light, rotating beacon, to these strobe lights. And the production went way down. And
the milk production went down.
Milk production of the cows went way down. They were severely affected because every 1.5 seconds they were getting this 2.5, megahertz transient hitting them, and it can travel for miles. When I say miles, 5, 6, 7 miles.
Okay, that was my question.
And so
wow.
They put the RF choke on the tower sometime, during the day, and that evening milking. So, I mean, it wasn't even 12 hours. It was maybe like 4 or 5 hours that the RF choke was on the tower. Those cows were up 7 pounds per cow per day.
7 pounds per cow per day.
They went up that evening milking. So if you take, all the milk that the cows produced divided by number of cows, let's say they were on average producing 60 pounds because you have some cows in low lactation, some cows just fresh, whatever. Let's say that, just throw out a number, 65 pounds they were milking. That night they went up to 72 on average. They went up 7 pounds. So you can't tell me that this stuff doesn't affect people and animals. I mean, that is documented. I mean, weights are documented because, the milk company picks up the milk and records the weight. So, I mean, there's no question.
And you might not be an electrical engineer, but you are an expert as a veterinarian, and definitely you're qualified to say, hey, this is affecting the production of these animals.
Yeah, it wasn't, my particular practice that this happened, but it's, I've seen the effect on my cat in terms of
Right. What was
all the
it?
Different issues.
Your cat wouldn't sleep in a certain area of the house because of this, or was that related to your smart meter?
That's related to my smart meter.
Okay.
That she will not touch a certain area of the house. She stays at least 90% of the time she spends in the room that's catty corner to the smart meter, as far away from that as she can.
Boy, I want to thank you because this is an issue I personally was not aware of, and I know a lot of people. We've heard about cell towers, cell phones, EM pollution, but it's something that we really haven't let sink in how serious of an issue this is. I mean, basically, we're being bombarded.
It's serious. We are being irradiated to death by numerous sources. Smart meters are like the second, another whole issue other than cell towers.
Right, you brought that into. I could not believe that. Basically, people, if you're listening out there, Pamela Jaffke's on the line here. She's from Clark County. Cell phone tower went up, and she's saying that, look, it's putting out way too much power. The whole problem can be fixed with the $35 part. But the smart meters are a new type of meter that's put on your homes that is digital and no longer has the little rotating dials. And I wasn't sure if we had replaced ours here in the city, and I went out and looked, and by golly, if they aren't digital meters out there. And thank goodness that Pam brought this to my attention, because the previous property I was sleeping in, I had one about 8 feet from my head on the back side of the wall. And Pam, I'm not kidding. I would put my head down on the pillow and I thought I would hear music. I thought I was going insane, because when I put my head up off the pillow, I couldn't hear the music anymore. And I don't mean like an actual audio sound.
Your head was being irradiated. I mean, it sends out radio waves. And besides the electrical pollution problem, there's a privacy problem with those, because they're like little FM radios.
Uh-huh.
Police are using them as an invasion of privacy. It's illegal search and seizure. It goes against our Constitution.
Okay. Now, do you know how that works? Are you saying that it actually can pick up audio? I know you can transmit data through power lines.
The police department they were busting people for, well, they were picking up like electrical usage, I think, for growing marijuana, but I don't know exactly how but it sends out a radio wave just like an FM radio, and they were picking up, and I don't know exactly what they were picking up, but they're using it as they were making arrests. They were getting search warrants based on what they were finding from the signals they were picking up from the smart meters on your home. And I'm sorry, that's wiretapping.
That is wiretapping. I mean, that's an incredible, I believe that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, illegal search and seizure. Illegal search,
and it's illegal because, look, how would you...
I don't have any permission to have somebody, I didn't say you could eavesdrop on me.
Right. I detest that attitude that some people have where they say, well, look, if you weren't doing anything, you wouldn't be concerned. And I'm like, are you serious? You have why?
No sense of privacy?
Well, here's the thing. We know if we put microphones inside the senator, congressman, even the police chiefs, a lot of police chiefs in this country are the drug dealers in your towns. That's the only, you got to ask yourself, how do these drugs get in? Why do these low-level guys always get arrested, but the main guys that bring it in never get brought down? And, well, we basically know the answer to that because they're untouchable.
So, yeah, besides smart meters basically frying us, basically I'm now living in a microwave.
Oh, gee. I mean, that's what it is. It's a microwave transmitter. Is that the best way to look at that?
I've actually got some information. It transmits, it's actually got like a signal, like an FM radio would have a signal.
Right. Okay.
But let me find another. But it's mind-boggling that these smartphones or these smart meters, that they were put on without any regard for safety, without any regard for anything.
Well, right. Nothing. Not the constitutional considerations, not the health considerations. It almost makes you wonder. I mean, they get all bent out of shape for the dumbest things these days. But we actually have these death towers. Let's just call them death towers, because that's what they are. I mean, they're basically killing us slowly, affecting our brains, our DNA.
Our entire health.
Yeah.
But. Smart meters are directly connected to the wiring in customers' homes. The radio frequency energy they emit not only travels through the air, but is conducted onto the wiring and surrounds customers in their homes. Reports of sleep disturbances, headaches, dizziness, nausea, fatigue, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, ringing in the ears. I never had ringing in the ears till a couple years ago. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Memory loss and difficulty concentrating are widespread.
And a lot of people out there are going to their doctors trying to get some sort of magic pill to solve this problem, when actually you just need to remove the microwave oven outside your house that's blasting your brain.
Basically, yes.
I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, it's laugh or cry. You take your pick.
Yeah. And I've been in contact with my utility, Xcel Energy. I have, asked to have the smart meter removed. they look at me like I'm nuts. And I said, well, and I even quoted the Public Service Commission code that says, first of all, the Public Service Commission said, well, it's up to the utilities as to what kind of meter. And I said, well, guess what? According to your own Public Service Commission code, it states right there that you can override, any law, that has been written if the health of the consumer mandates a change in the law. So I said, you've got the power to tell the utilities that if the smart meters are harming people, that they need to go back to analog meters. Well, it took them a while to answer me because they were probably trying to think of somehow. And they answered back, and it was a form letter, and it said the same thing, that we cannot help you. The utilities have the final say in what kind of meters. And I thought, God help us.
This becomes a situation again where it's not we're fighting for the control of our local government and to maintain, and by control, I don't mean from a control freak standpoint. My goodness, Pamela here is just trying to keep from her cat, herself, her fellow neighbors from the tower by the school. This is something where just like, I mean, people, if they say they care, you can't bombard children with, and nobody signed a waiver, nobody gave permission for this. Pam, do you suspect that this is one of those regional government issues where we're getting legislation and policy handed down to us from some sort of obviously it's foreign. They're coming from Canada. I don't know who owns that railroad, but
yeah, Canadian National owns, the cell tower. The Public Service Commission has been funded by fees from the utilities instead of being funded by the general fund here in Wisconsin. So who do you think they answer to?
The guy with the money.
That pay them.
Yep.
They're paid by the utilities. Their answer to the utilities. I mean, we are just, a fly on an elephant's butt to them.
Right, right.
And they are not, for 30 years, they have let the electrical companies in terms of the electrical pollution, but some people refer to it as straight voltage. I hate that term because it implies that nobody's responsible, and that's a terrible term. It's electrical pollution.
Yes.
They, the people they're supposed to protect are so far down the line that we're not even in the same picture. They are owned, bought, and paid for, and I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if anybody from the Public Service Commission hears this. I have the letters to back up what I'm saying, what you wrote to me. The last thing you care about is my concerns. You are bought and paid for by the utilities. And I don't care. You can sue me if you want. I'd love it.
And when I hear the incongruency, if they're willing to shell out $11 million to cover some liability issue, but then at the same time they won't take the preventative measures from the get-go when they put up these towers, sounds to me, and I'm just inclined to be cynical this way, maybe there's a deeper reason for this. Maybe there is this is something that they wanted in place. I mean, obviously, you're telling, I mean, I know you wouldn't tell me, but there's no scientists out there, no electrical engineers that understand the damaging health effects of both smart meters and cell towers.
There's thousands.
There's thousands. I mean, so why are their voices silent on this issue? That's what I want to know. I mean, if they're listening.
They've tried. I mean, Dave Stetzer, he has gone before the legislature so many times. He's gone to the utilities. People have been fighting this issue for years, decades. And there's just so much money involved on the side of the utilities and the side of the telecommunications industry. And it's been slapped around so much,
But is it a situation, are they just trying to save money, or is there any way... I mean, how can we put up... I mean, I know there's a lot of poisonous things everywhere, but, I mean, what's the agenda behind this? Why would a company do this? I mean, we're their paying customers. Don't we use cell phones to buy their electricity? And
it's all money. And, again, they don't want to be regulated. The telecommunications industry, that's why they wrote their own law. to make sure that they're not regulated. You know, they it's mind-boggling. It all comes down to money. You know, let's you know, the third leg of the stool. We have the cell towers, we have the smart meters, and we have just plain old electrical pollution that, you know, I've also, you know, been fighting. The utilities are allowed to shove electricity into the ground instead of put on a wire and take it back to the substation.
Okay.
Electrons always want to go home. They're homing pigeons. So they're going to find a way home. So when you shove the electricity in the ground, they're going to eventually use the ground to get back to the substation. My house happens to be in the path of a lot of ground current.
And that's a non-directed current when it returns versus going through a wire. It's just sort of finding
I mean,
its
it
path.
follows the path of least resistance. It
Right.
goes wherever it goes. Just think of when you spill a glass of milk on a table, it just spreads out everywhere. Well, that's what the electrical current is doing in the...
Ooh, we're just bathing in it, huh?
Yeah, and it travels on the surface. And the Public Service Commission allowed them to do this back in like 1980, 81, and I'm speaking for Wisconsin. I don't know about the rest of the country. And it was supposed to be just a temporary fix because what was happening is electrical usage was increasing to the point where the wires' voltage is a measure of pressure. And the pressure was so high on the wires that they couldn't take the pressure anymore. It's like when you have a 2-lane highway and you expand and you know, you need to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes because there's just so much traffic. Well, instead of rewiring and putting up bigger wires that would handle the electrical current and putting up a big enough neutral to handle the return flow back to the substation, they shove electricity into the ground.
Okay.
And that's why, you know, one of the reasons the cell tower, you know, it can't handle that 2.5 million transient that's produced is because the wiring is so poor.
It's hard to get my mind wrapped around that 2.5 million figure. I mean, you're saying 60 megahertz is what's allowed?
Is normal.
It's
yeah,
normal.
60, if you think back to physics, you know, that kind of looks like a wave motion, that sine wave, you know, 60 cycle per second.
Okay.
And what's produced on the cell tower is 2.5 million, and the wiring cannot handle that. But the wiring can handle, you know, just even a general household. You know, the wiring is so poor. I had Excel come out and look at the wiring behind my house. It's so old, the insulation is shredded, and it's just bare wires. And he says, well, those wires are older than you and me.
Okay.
And he was probably 60.
Are they nylon wrapped? I know they used to take the wires and put the cloth wrap on them.
No, that's disintegrated. It's just
right. That's like 100 years ago or something they did that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And do you think that they would? But they say it would cost too much money to update. What would really cost them is because every time you've got all this trash on the line, all this garbage that, you know, should be on the neutral, taken back to the substation. You know, you've got wires that can't handle the trash. You've got all these crappy currents. All this electrical pollution makes your meter spin faster.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that.
So guess what? They don't want to fix the problem because they are raping us on our electric bills.
Oh, I see. It's just we're getting charged for it, but we're not getting an efficient use of that power that we pay for.
Exactly.
Wow.
So do you think there's any incentive for them to upgrade their lines?
Well,
when if they actually upgrade their lines, hey, you can double my bill. If you upgrade my lines, my bill will probably drop in half, and we're back to square one.
And all the time, we got all these green movements out there, people talking about pollution and excessive use of energy. And here it turns out we're just wasting it. It's just kind of like what would be if we had a water faucet and you just got that thing open full blast. But when you go to tap into that hose, you're only getting a tenth of the stream. The rest of it's just spilling out all over the ground. That would be the corollary.
That's close, yeah. It's the electricity that's going out on the wire. The wires can't handle it. So when it tries to go back to the substation, it gets there, but it gets there very inefficiently, so a lot is wasted. You know, like you put out 10 cows on pasture in the morning, and when you bring them into milk, you only bring 5 back in. well, you lost 5 cows. I mean,
Right,
they
right.
didn't come home. So, as other people have talked to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to, get the electricity back to the substation in an efficient manner?
I live in the city, and I know for a fact that we seldom hear of any of these issues that you're dealing with up north, out west, in the rural farmlands, and
in the cities, it's worse.
In the cities, it's got to be amplified 1,000 times, right?
Exactly.
Pam, we should be thanking you right now. All the listeners, all the people listening right now, you should be thanking Pam, because I got to be honest, I deal with a lot of issues. There's so many issues to deal with. I sometimes don't know which ones to address. It's just a matter of triaging. But then this electrical pollution, this is so prevalent everywhere. It's a ubiquitous issue. We all are dealing with this one. We need to thank you for bringing this attention to our attention.
And you can't see electrical pollution like you can see water pollution or air pollution. You can't taste it. You can't see it. You can feel it, because I can feel it. I walked into one bar and I said, my legs and feet started immediately tingling really bad, and I said, and they're right by a high line. And I didn't say anything, but I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what they have to deal with, and my feet and legs were tingling really bad. It's happened a couple times. But yeah, the stray voltage where, cows got sick and whatever, that was all, farmer problems. Nobody realizes that if you use electricity, you are affected. I mean, you are affected in your homes. You're affected everywhere you go. Most likely everybody lives close to a cell tower, maybe within a couple miles. But even if you don't, if you've got electricity, if you've got a smart meter on your house, if you've got, wiring that, poor wiring where, just check any utility pole. You'll see a wire being driven into the ground. Almost every pole has a wire being driven into the ground, and that's electricity that should be going out on a line back to the utilities.
Oh, I see, right. There's a new regulation where you have to have 2 6-foot copper poles driven into the ground, and basically you're saying that excess overflow just pours right in there and sits like a little pool bathing us underneath our homes, underneath the ground. We're just like immersed in this bubble of electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, and when you look at all even to the point of like spy satellites, beaming crap down from space, we are totally bathed in electromagnetic pollution that our body was never, ever meant to handle.
No, for 1 million years that human beings have been on this planet, that's an estimate, I don't know for sure, but it's just safe to say for 1 million years, it's only been within the last 100 years that we've exposed ourselves to this new problem.
And look at the diseases of modern man in the last 100 years that are now commonplace, that just did not exist to any degree.
Well,
cancer was unheard of in the early 1900s. Maybe 2 out of 100, maybe 2% of the population got cancer.
Especially
now it's over 50%.
And right, well, actually, isn't like one out of 3 people now? You can figure 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4.
I thought it was
people.
Actually closer to 1 out of 2, but don't quote me on that.
No, it's like 2 years ago. I remember the figures were 1 out of 3, and diabetes rates are through the roof. But that's probably a different.
That's affected by electromagnetic pollution.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness!
Absolutely.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I thought
sugar regulation, blood pressure. Yeah, how many people can't regulate blood pressure?
Well, how many people, right, are taking statins? And it turns out that the LDL and HDL, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I don't know, our medical doctors, all I got to do, I can say shame on you guys. If we get bullet wounds or a car accident, I got to admit, you guys are top notch. When it comes to, you're the best in the world. But when it comes to the simplest remedies of actual human health, I wish I could use expletives to describe my disgust at their ignorance and lack of education. And the way the people worship these doctors, they go to these hospitals and like, oh, doctor. Makes me angry, Pam.
It is frustrating. They're of course not taught any of this.
No.
Some of them have tried. And there are some people who are, like Dr. Mercola, who
Dr. Mercola, yes. We tried to get him on the show, but he's a very busy man, and bless him.
Very busy. So there are some out there, but doctors legally can do two things: diagnose from a specific set of symptoms and prescribe drugs. And if they deviate from that, they'll lose their license. In fact, there's places that monitor how many drugs doctors dispense.
And they're paid by the pharmaceutical companies to push those drugs.
And so they the only nutritional advice they could give is eat calcium to ward off osteoporosis. Legally, they can't even give any other nutritional advice.
Okay, now I've listened to Dr. Mercola, and correct. What is your opinion on this? I heard that a cow's. I'm glad you're a veterinarian because you're the person to ask for this. I heard that cow's cells are 15 times the size of human cells, and that the cow calcium that's in their milk for the baby cows is actually not able to be processed by human beings, and what we're getting is overcalcification and calcium deposits in our body. What do you say to that?
I have to be a little careful. Raw milk is great. I wish I could get raw milk.
Right. But even wouldn't goat's milk be better for the human consumption?
There's some people who have. I drink cow's milk. There's some people who, if they do have a problem with digesting cow's milk, they do well on goat's milk.
I see. We digress a little bit from the electrical pollution topic, but it's all related because we're talking about a situation where this is our environment, this is where we live, and if our environment is unhealthy, going to the doctors for medications and drugs that only mask the symptoms don't ever address the cause. They're always looking for the cure to cancer, but never the cause of cancer. And here, do these cell phone towers, has it been confirmed that they cause cancer?
Well, there's some studies overseas that you were either 3 or 4 more times likely to die from cancer if you were within a tenth of a mile of a cell tower, and I am within the tenth of a mile of that cell tower. Those are peer-reviewed studies that have been proven that you do run a higher risk of cancer.
You know, it reminds me of a story.
And those are 2 of hundreds.
Hundreds. Yeah, we've got them here. There's one not far, and I walk by it every day. And I don't think much of it, but now when I walk by that thing, I got to think, what should we be looking for on those towers? How can we tell is there any visible way that we can tell if they've got that device or that if this thing is being controlled? Or
boy, it's not a very big device. I don't know if you could even see it. I mean, you'd almost have to call them up and ask, do you have an RF choke on that tower?
An RF choke,
not,
yeah.
Why not? But, the fixes aren't that hard. Let's look at the 3 issues that we talked about, one being the cell tower. Okay, $35 part, plus enough filters to make sure you're not throwing a bunch of trash out on the line. The smart meter, give me back my analog meter. I'm a college graduate. Even if you're not a college graduate, you could probably look at the numbers, read it, and call it into the utilities. If they want to say they're saving money by, cutting out a job, which this country needs, to go around and read the meters. I can read my meter, and if something's really screwy, then if you have to send somebody out, you can send it out. I can read my meter and call it in. So, the simple fix for smart meters is give me my old analog meter back. The simple fix for electrical pollution and the ground currents in the ground is put up a 5th wire. Keep the electrical grid exactly the way it is. Just put up another wire to take the electricity back to the substation. Those are 3 simple, cheap, easy fixes.
When you say put up a 5th wire, we've got a hot, a ground, a neutral. What's the 4th?
Okay, well, there's phase A, B, and D. If you look out most of the lines, there's 3 wires, phase A, B, and D, phase A, B, and C behind my house, and then the neutral. And so if they just put up another neutral to handle the excess load, and in fact, the utility's own research arm published a study in 1996, not quite 20 years ago, that said a simple, easy fix to the problem.
A 5th wire.
That would also maintain the present distribution system is a 5th wire. The own utilities research arm advocated a 5th wire to handle to get the electricity out of the ground.
So
almost
basically,
20 years ago.
all over the country, we'd have to have these things installed. I could maybe see why they're hesitant to do this, because this requires a revamping of it. But like you said, it would provide jobs, and that's what we need right now. So
Yeah, to run a fifth wire, it would cost him pennies. What did Dave Stetzer say on a tape that I listened to of his? It would be 30 cents on $100 monthly utility bill it would cost, or maybe not even that much. I mean, it was such a small amount that it was pathetic.
Oh, and all of us would be glad to pay it. I mean, after listening to you
because
today,
then our bills would go down a whole lot more.
the bills would go down, our health would go up, productivity would increase.
Do you know how much this country could save on health care if there was safe electricity? How much businesses spend? They spend millions upon millions. You know how much hospitals have to spend on all this really expensive equipment because of all the bad electricity and the trash on the lines for, filters and all this other stuff for like their MRIs and whatever, because all their sensitive surgical equipment that they, I don't know the figure, but I mean, what business would they, if they did have all the safeguards that and
I
Good evening, River West, Milwaukee, and possibly the globe. Welcome to Compose Yourself with Julie Brandenburg. This is a talk show about local music as well as a radio workshop for songwriters and composers.
When I just sit there
we are broadcasting from the River West Film and Video headquarters on Center Street in the heart of beautiful downtown River West.
Fluorosilicic acid. I speak about.
My name is Julie Brandenburg. I'm the producer of Compose Yourself. This show. The things you will hear over the next 2 hours represents the views of me, Julie Brandenburg, and the people in my panel, who I will introduce momentarily. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the
so fast and hard. We hear them and then we go, okay, well, back to our lives. We can't deal with every single issue. But this is
each week, I will have a panel of songwriters, composers, students, and listeners here to share songs and discuss the craft of songwriting and composing. With me today in the studio is Jacob Mushing, bass player for the Freddie Lee Band, Spencer Powers, who is the drummer for Shroud of Despondency, and Emily Zimmer, guitarist for the Freddie Lee Band. Joining us today is filmmaker Jamie Sod, who will discuss his film about local music shortly in the show. But first, let's get started by listening to some music, as we always do. So, guys, finally, after 3 months, I went and did it. I got the new Meshuggah album. Why did anyone not make sure I got it sooner? It's so good. I love it. I love it. I should have got it sooner.
There were people who told you to get it sooner.
Okay. He's right, there were.
I don't know, Julie. From my circle of friends, I've only ever heard not very good things from about Meshuggah. This newest album is actually pretty impressive. I have to agree with Julie. I just listened to it for the first time a few days ago and again today, and it's pretty well done.
Right, we don't hear about
Jacob, you know I like the heavy stuff. Is there anything that would really appeal to me? Yeah, it was very heavy. I mean, it was way more traditional metal sounding, but it was a little bit more progressive than straight up math metal like
riverwestradio.com.
The earlier days.
Breaking Down the News is an alternative media site. CNN has lost a lot of viewers, especially from the younger audience, because
you'd really like the drumming on it, Spencer. That guy can really do some stuff with his feet. It's pretty impressive.
Nice. Yeah, if it grips, it rips, man. I'd probably be a fan then. I'll check it out.
Check it out. You know, their previous album, Obsidian, was really good, and I saw them at the Rave for their tour for that album, and I was blown away by that. I actually think I like this newest one even better. So, have you heard it
radio,
but
I don't care.
Yeah, right. I know how you feel, right?
It's like I really don't care. Can you talk about
oh my goodness gracious! And, we will just have to get you to listen to it.
Well,
but not here.
Yeah.
Not here, because here we play only
original the issues, and then collectively
and that's a wonderful thing. So instead of playing that, we're going to play one of our favorite Milwaukee heavy bands.
Don't put up with this. Contact your city council members.
So we're going to listen to a track called
senators, congressmen, and representatives. I'll write a letter to the president. Not that that's going to matter right now. These are paid and bought for politicians and by Wall Street and the people that run him. We keep the teleprompter reader. Doesn't matter. Romney gets in there. None of these guys are going to talk about the issues we're talking about today. Maybe, but now with this, I don't really see it happening. I had hope. It's not that I was behind the call 100% on every issue, but I like that basic platform of, when it comes to issues, help the state and hope about it. That seems like the clearest approach to it. How do we have to live under federal mandates?
It's in the Constitution. Federal government does point money, not print money, point money, not print, and pretty much everything else should be under state control.
I agree with you. How else do we do? Otherwise, we have a centralized government, and historically, there are problems with decentralized government. Not that we should go. was so unpopular that he feared being assassinated constantly. So he figured probably had some help. If I centralize all these bureaus and agencies into one political plus every city, I can still run this. And that's basically how it started in the I don't know how much time we have left. I would definitely love to have you back. I know there's other people out there fighting this issue. If we have anybody in town here, please contact us. You can contact me at breakingdownthenews@gmail.com. Breaking Down the News is also on Facebook. Please write in and let us know. If you're simpatico with our terms this year, let's get on board. Let's dialogue, network, communicate, whatever we got to do here. There's so many issues to put out there. In fact, we're going to be doing a website just for these issues, and hopefully coalescing this information around you for a new issue after. I know you know about GM foods out there. Just flaky food, just utterly just. But I don't want to get off topic here, but definitely, we need to have you back. We need to follow up on how this is going. What chances are there that there is this If they could shell out $11 million and millions of thousands. Or they can go about 40 years with that fine. They're like, oh, you $1 fine. You know what? They need to change the law. $1 million a day. Man, that's the problem. You gotta hook these guys in the pocket.
I figure $1,000 a day after a bunch of days. About it. Actually, I'm the one in the school.
Would the school system have to pay for that?
No, website. There was district that State Chester worked with Melville Pandora to clean up the electrical pool. There were 34 kids on a field for the anthem. There was electrical
What's the new phrase I just came up with? I'm sorry, I didn't come up with it. I ran across it.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com, and we just listened to a track from Face of Ruin,
as if to say that
In the Depths.
You're
if
saying,
you want to check
just
out their
because
music,
34 went
they
down
are
to
on
one
Reverb
kid
Nation,
on asthma,
I believe Bandcamp as
device.
well. And their album is for sale. They have two recordings that are available.
That's 33 kids that
this
no
one
longer
is off
need
their
an
newer
inhaler.
recording.
And our government officials or the people that own these companies like to throw out the phrase, well, causation is not necessarily a correlation.
So did the drummer after that take was over.
Pretty evident.
Yeah, Chris Bissell is the most talented drummer I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And as well as John Leakey is the most talented guitarist I've ever met. And they are both in this amazing band.
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah, that was
and
it's interesting hearing
that website
music like
is electricalpollution.com.
It sounds like death metal with the growling and all, but it's really
who's running
progressive.
that
I
one?
mean, the song started off in 4, and then it went to 7 for a while, and then it was switching between 7 and 6 for a while, and then just complete. It was really hard to follow. There was a lot of time signature changing. And it was actually, it was pretty dissonant overall. I mean, they were playing really interesting.
20 years she's been battling this issue?
Yeah, that's one thing I like about them is they don't seem to be afraid to do things that are outside the box of what they're supposed to be doing. They break the rules. They have beautiful melodic guitar lines. What? That's not supposed to happen in this kind of music.
Well, look, our news media isn't telling us. That's why we need to abandon them. We need to abandon the politicians. Get them out of there. The guys that don't seem to...
the other guitarist besides John Leakey.
Look, if I'm just learning about this particular issue, and I got to tell you, folks, I really am a little
he has a definite view of what he wants, and then
I was not aware of this one. As a decent human being, you know what my first reaction is?
But basically, every single member of the band, Rhythm Section included, is presented with
studies and find out the data that proves conclusively the points and the damages that BAM
have something to work on before the first rehearsal,
reducing cow milk production to producing cancer, affecting sleep disorders.
Have that.
My instinct is get informed, get involved, get behind these people. If you don't have time, I understand we're all working really hard, but really, how can you go about your day thinking it's a beautiful day here in Milwaukee, actually? And I'm looking at these big white fluffy clouds, and it makes me think, oh, I should really be concerned about this stuff. But how can we really, in all earnestness, not be concerned? How can we just go about our lives as if nothing is wrong anymore?
Yeah, like the whole Borg Ward scene for a while there. People
messed up.
Showing up. I liked that scene. I don't know why I haven't felt like I've seen a show going on
so much of this stuff obviously is done
for a while. But what I liked about that scene is it was not a music club. There were no pool tables, as Peter just pointed out in the film we'll talk about later. It's no booze, no nothing. It's just music. You walk in there, you look at some art, and you listen to some music. And it was really neat the way people were very focused.
That's what the news show here is about, actually, breaking down the news. Are the headlines that shouldn't have been on the front pages,
but weren't. Anybody know if the Borg Ward is doing any?
Yep. They're still doing shows, yeah. I just saw John Leakey do an experimental noise project with his 2 synthesizers and his theremin, and he was the opening act for a whole slew of metal bands playing a metal show there last Friday.
I just want to thank her. Thank you, anybody that's taken up these causes and have been in the trenches for a while.
I missed it as well.
We owe you guys a cup of coffee and a pat on the back, to say the least.
That would explain why. Because something like that would have made it on my calendar, but I think
football, and baseball, and basketball, go to the lake and enjoy our lives while other people are taking up these issues.
The melodic shape of some of those guitar lines.
Pam,
and,
I want to thank you.
He doesn't do
from
the
bottom
formulaic,
of my heart for bringing this issue. This is something that now I can warn my friends and family, and I will, because they need to check how close are these smart meters to your home. Are you sleeping next to this thing? Is it down by your...
The whole band,
next to your child's nursery crib?
It's just a bunch of guys who have been so dedicated to metal for so many years. It's really the culmination of
something's got to be done. Something's got to be done immediately. We will follow up on this issue. Pam, we're going to cut the show because
I think
we got to go on to other
really
things.
awesome.
Fortunately, we have a long show today on Friday here. So,
any other comments?
Thank you so much.
I think it's time for us
will
to
you
move
follow
on
up
to
with
our
us in
next
the future? Will you come back on the show?
Shameless.
Pamela Jafke, everyone.
Promotion.
Veterinarian out in Clark County. She's almost single-handedly, her and electricalpollution.com and Catherine out there, they're fighting this cause. They're promoting an awareness of this thing. We need to get behind them. I always say, look, if you want to help and you can't do anything, send money. These people could use it as advocacy for their cause.
So
it costs money to contact people, follow up on this thing. You want to throw your money somewhere, throw it their way.
And I'm very excited about this.
I'm sure you don't have a problem with that, Pam.
Finally getting this band together that I've been wanting to get together for a while.
Couldn't you print out
decided
more
upon a
flyers?
name,
Could you
and that
buy
name
airtime,
is
advertising, whatever help you could get?
Yeah, everything I've done. I mean, I know Catherine's done it too. I mean,
what do you think? And Chase,
I mean,
it is an adjective that means decorated or ornamented by inlaying or engraving, especially with gems.
People actually doing it themselves. We cannot wait for our leaders who have betrayed us. They're not there representing us, and I say no taxation without representation. We're not getting represented.
What do you think?
We're not getting represented.
Yeah.
Pam, thank you again.
I was
thank you so much. We'll talk to you as soon as we can, and I'm going to follow up off there with you.
I always find that has a lot more,
just stay abreast
a lot more
of
water
situation
than
out
just
there and bring the people here, not just in Milwaukee, but worldwide. We are a worldwide broadcast. People listen to the show a lot on the archives. We don't always have that big of an audience on the live listening hour.
3 votes for yes.
But when they get home and they're doing their dishes or they're riding in their cars, they podcast it. They do listen, and we do promote it.
I found it just because I
will be heard, Pam.
Just searching for interesting-looking words.
And this is a worldwide problem, obviously.
When I read the meaning, I thought, well, that just is kind of cool.
Many countries that are so far ahead of us.
Something with gems or to engrave it and beautify it. That kind of is what we're trying to sort of do when we make art of all kinds, including music. So
it's not the Ukraine, but
then
one
I
of
thought
the republics that was part of the Soviet Union.
Aha!
They recognize electrical.
That's the name we're going to go with, and I am excited to unveil the members who are finally solidified. It will be Jacob playing the bass.
They'll call anything a disease these days, except for the actual things that are a problem.
We've talked about him before. He's very, very solid. He also plays the
can't take a pill to solve this
issue. He will be playing drums.
Ingesting pills will not stop the
Angie
EMF
Schmidt, who is the electric cellist in Far Corner, her husband's band, but she is happy to continue to play.
Well, again, thank you, Pam. We're going to have to drop the line here and get moving, but.
And then we have Steve
We'll talk to you as soon as possible, and I'll follow up off
air
with email correspondence and phone calls.
Once again that he has
sounds good.
Said he does in fact have the time.
This is Pamela Jafke. She's out there in Clark County. Please, is there any contact information? Do you need people to contact you for support or maybe an email? Anything?
Well,
so I am totally excited. We're going to start rehearsals later this month. So that's why I chose to be
and I can get overwhelmed. Well, I guess
and play for you.
I don't mind giving out my phone number. It's in the phone book, so it's public knowledge. It's,
I'm getting that set up because I just pushed the wrong button. I would mention that this is the short version of the song without the big, long electronic introduction. But you can hear the long version on my SoundCloud page, where some of the programs from our previous Compose Yourself installments are also
You're welcome for your time, and we'll be right back. Got more news. It never stops here at Breaking Down the News. It just never stops until, I don't know, we're not going to fix all these problems, but we're going to try it. Pam, take care. Have a good day,
Pam. So you can listen to this show on Thursdays as well as Wednesdays. Thursdays in the afternoon it will be rebroadcast